Hey everybody, this is Robbie Howell, and this is my little documentary on how I built the Gator stop motion animation model for the movie Gator. I went to the internet and found some diagrams on how to build a stop motion model. A stop motion model has got to have bendable joints just like a person does or an animal does in order to animate it. They recommended using wooden dowels cut into small sections, and then you can take two eye hooks, a screw, a nut and a bolt, and vinyl washers, and by putting them together you actually make a bendable elbow joint. Now you can also make a hip joint in the same manner, which I had to do. Making a four-legged animal, the legs had to move at least close to similar to how a real alligator would move. They went together pretty well, used a little bit of crazy glue to hold them into the wood, and they had a pretty good range of motion back and right, up and down. For the body, I used two balsa wood eggs joined together at the middle, and that allowed for movement side to side. For the toes, I used copper wire, and then I wrapped the foot in black electrical tape to give it a shape. Later on, I would come in and cover these with latex skin. Then I wrapped the body with a thin layer of foam, similar to what you'd find in quilts or pillows. I built a hinge jointed tail that allowed for swinging left and right, and also covered it with the foam and tapered it down at the end, and finished up the rest of the body. This built up the muscles and everything. The head was a $6 alligator head from a beachwear shop, and I jointed his lower jaw so his jaw could open and close. Then I put a joint on the end of the body that I could attach the head to, where the head would be able to move up and down and side to side. I used a small piece of a dowel and just some Gorilla Glue for this, and it worked out pretty well. Then for the skin, I took modeling clay and rolled it out. This is the air dry type. A toy alligator skin, which I cut into segments, and I pressed the segments of skin into that clay. Once they dried, they made a hard mold to be able to make skin in. So taking some liquid latex, I poured 2 or 3 thin layers in, dried it with a blow dryer, and when you peel it out you got perfect alligator skin. And this is the same way they make Halloween masks. So I started to cover the gator, and I started on the top and did the tail and did his legs. I fused everything together, joined it with latex, which all dried to that flesh color. His claws are real alligator claws, and he had a body, and now he just needed some color. So I took some acrylic craft paint and basically started coloring him in, and I made his body match his head, and he turned out pretty good. Actually, he that was the easiest part of the job. And so there's Gator, ready for action, ready to eat a few people, and he'll be sitting on my shelf for years to come. Hello everybody, this is Robbie, and this is my little brief look at how Gator came to life. Seems like there have been a lot of big alligator or crocodile movies over the past few years. You turn on the Sci-Fi Channel or watch late night television and you'll come across one sooner or later. There are even a few of them out now that are fairly new, and some that haven't even come out yet. It just seemed like, hey, everybody else is making a big alligator movie, I think I'll make one. So for this year's movie, I got the idea for Gator, and all this kind of goes back to when I was a kid, and then the first movie I ever saw was called The Valley of Gwangi. It was a dinosaur western, but it pretty much warped me for the rest of my life. It was the most realistic looking dinosaur I'd ever seen in a movie before. Still holds up pretty good even though it's several years old. And I set out to find out how it was done. That's when I heard about Ray Harryhausen, and he was a stop-motion animator who worked on movies like Mighty Joe Young, and his creatures were all models that he hand-built. They all had articulated joints and were covered with a latex skin, and he's responsible for some of the most famous monsters in movie history. We've all seen his creatures in one film or another growing up. They're still pretty popular today. And it had been kind of like a lifelong thing. I always wanted to just try to do it just one time and see if I could recreate what Harryhausen had done years ago. So you've probably already seen the segment on how I built my stop motion animation model of Gator. And once that was done, we just set out and shot the live action. For example, here's Jerry shooting at nothing. Later on, I would add the alligator in via special effects. You had to kind of know where the creature was going to be, get your eye lines right, and pretend you were shooting at something that wasn't there. The stick fight was pretty interesting. I was pretty much fighting nothing. And after the live action was done, I bought a program over the internet called Stop Motion Maker and set about animating my gator model. It's a pretty slow process because you have to shoot about 25 frames per second, and so 75 frames will give you a 3-second shot, every time moving the animation model just a little bit to actually bring him to life, then taking another shot. Now here you see this is a pretty long shot. Here it's 14.2 seconds at 24 frames per second. That is actually a total of 341 different times that I had to move the model. The program also let me put in backgrounds and put the gator in with live action. You see here's a shot of Jerry on the backhoe up in the corner, and here is the composited shot where I added the stop motion alligator in. Now this is a scene from the movie at actual speed. When you slow it down, and if you count each one of these little movements, for instance like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, you'll see that there are a lot of individual movements that you have to put the model through to get the live action. Actually, this scene here was 80 to 90 individual times I had to move the model. The entire movie had about 6,000 to 8,000 individual movements. So that's my little story on how Gator came to life, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.